Good evening, everyone. I'm going to speak English because of our guest. So, if you need translation, you have headphones, so use them. I'm Costantino Marmo, director of the Umberto International Center for Humanities of the University of Bologna. But before starting, I'll give the floor to my colleague and Professor Giuliana Benvenuti, our rector's delegate for cultural heritage, who's going to say a few words of welcome to you and our guest on behalf of the rector of the University of Bologna, who couldn't be with us this evening. So, please, Giuliana.
I think it's not working, the translation, but...
So, good evening. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Well, we are all looking forward to hearing Nevo's words, and so I will take just 1 minute, maybe 2, but not more of your time. It is a great honor for me to bring today the compliments and the welcome of the rector of the University of Bologna, Professor Giovanni Molari, who regrets not being here with us now. So after the most difficult and I will say most challenging period of the pandemic, which we hope is receding, maybe ending, I don't know. It is exciting, it is really a positive emotional impact to be able to come together again, to resume and renew the illustrious tradition of the Eco Lectures following the Ferrante's speeches in the theater, also organized by the Centro Eco. So, and it is an honor for the university, to listen to a great writer who has chosen as the title of his lecture the term hope, a term more intense than ever in this difficult and tragic moment of history in which war returns to Europe, and we all hope that this circumstance does not mean the return of a world war. Bringing to the Centro Eco and to all of you the rector's gratitude for this initiative, I immediately leave the floor to those who better than I will know how to present and to introduce our prestigious guest, a writer, a master in investigating our inner struggles and the relationship of which our lives are interwoven. Thank you again on behalf of the rector, and thank you also on my own behalf.
Many thanks, Giuliana. Just a few words before leaving the floor to our guest, who, by the way, needs no introduction because you have all read at least one of his books, and otherwise you wouldn't be here, so numerous. The Umberto Eco Lectures, as Giuliana said, are master classes entrusted to personalities of national and international relevance. When Umberto Eco started this tradition with a series of master lectures addressed to the university and the city of Bologna, we were in January 2000. For the first lecture, Elie Wiesel was invited. For the last one in spring 2014, Orhan Pamuk. In between, there have been contributions from illustrious personalities such as Luciano Berio, Georg Steiner, Douglas Hofstetter, Julia Kristeva, and so on. In February 2020, the Umberto Eco International Center for Humanities of the University of Bologna started a new series, a new cycle of lecture dedicated to the memory of Umberto Eco, the Umberto Eco Lectures. We first invited Samantha Cristoforetti, our beloved astronaut, and after the forced break of the pandemic, we kept on with 3 lectures by Elena Ferrante, staged in November 2021 by the wonderful actress Manuela Mandracchia. We now have Eshkol Nevo, if I pronounce it well, one of the most important contemporary Israeli writers and one of my favorite authors. The first time I had one of his novels in my hand, it was completely by chance, several years ago. A surprise gift for Nicole, my wife, by some friends who are here, by the way. It was his second novel, I think. The World Cup Wishes, La Simmetria dei Desideri, a much more evocative title, I have to say. We were so enthusiastic about it that we couldn't help but search and read the other novels or wait for the new ones to be translated and published. In short, he is an author that I very much admire for his ability to tell stories set in a territory full of tensions, such as the Middle East, without letting these tensions take over, and for his ability to build characters whose stories, voices, and points of view intertwine in wide-ranging narratives in a web of human relationship of universal significance. I am very happy that Eshkol accepted our invitation, and maybe we will have a second lecture next May. I will keep you posted. Finally, I am particularly impressed with the chosen theme of the speech. In these dark days, this is what we need above all, hope. Thank you, Eshkol, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Buonasera. I am happy to be here as a guest of the University of Bologna. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be part of a series of lectures in the memory of the great Umberto Eco, who is an inspiration for every living writer. I myself studied psychology in the university. During our 3rd year, one of the professors created a group for students who wanted to go deeper, beyond the textbooks. We were about 15 students, and on the first meeting of the group, she asked us to come up with a subject we would like to study independently. The next week, we met again, and each student presented his field of interest. The first one to speak declared he wants to explore anxiety. The second one, depression. The third one was intrigued by the connection between anxiety and depression. By the time I was about to speak, we already went through trauma, post-trauma, schizophrenia, attachment problems, grief, and loss. I was already realizing that I'm about to get myself into trouble, which is kind of what I tend to do. So, what's your field of passion, Eshkol? The professor eventually asked me. I took a deep breath and I said, hope. There was a strange silence in the air. Nobody spoke, but I could tell by the looks on the faces of my colleagues that they thought I was something between crazy and stupid. The professor, on the other hand, didn't mock me. Interesting, she said. Do go to the library and look for existing research on hope. Let's see what you can find. The year was 1994, before Google. So I actually went to the library and looked for articles about hope. Guess how much I found? None. Zero. The only thing I could find was the beautiful story from the Greek mythology. Pandora opens the Pandora box and unleashes a multitude of harmful spirits that inflict plagues, diseases, and illness on mankind. Spirits of greed, envy, hatred, mistrust, sorrow, anger, lust, and despair scatter far and wide, looking for humans to torment. Inside the box, however, there was also one unreleased spirit: hope, or alphys in Greek. Only when Pandora finally releases hope, mankind can be relieved. Without hope, told us the Greek, we are doomed. I must say that since 1994, things have changed regarding the psychology of hope. A student looking for articles about hope today would find hundreds of them. We even have the Snyder Hope Scale. You can fill a questionnaire and find out how hopeful you are between 1 and 10. There are also clear-cut evidence that hopeful people live longer and cope better with diseases. We also are able to make nowadays an important distinction between optimism and hopefulness. You are either born an optimist or a pessimist. Hope, on the other hand, is something you can work on and develop. But I don't want to talk about hope today academically. I want to tell you a story. The story is a story about the last 2 years in my life. And although I am a fiction writer, I hereby declare that every single word in this story is going to be true. I want to share with you what I learned about hope during the time of the pandemic. In other words, what made it possible for me to survive these 2 challenging years. When the first lockdown was implicated in Israel, all my lectures were canceled. All my book tours were canceled. Creative writing lessons were no longer done face-to-face, but via agonizing Zoom. One of my friends died because he was afraid to evacuate himself to hospital and get COVID. His heart attack was not treated in time and we lost him. I could not see my parents, my friends. Hugging and kissing were denied from me, and other sources of happiness were also not available anymore. Music, dancing, traveling. Friends around me were collapsing one after the other, mentally, financially. And I was afraid I am about to go down the same road. But then I started writing. I dived into a new novel and spent hours every day with my imaginative characters. Not like me. They could travel. They could hug. They could kiss wherever they wanted. There was no social distancing in my novel. They were free. And writing, using my imagination, brought back the sense of freedom I was missing so much in real life. So imagining is maybe a good starting point in our quest today for hope. And I must stress out that this does not apply only for writers, but also for readers. When you read a book, when your imagination is activated, you become more hopeful. Following imagination, I want to talk about wishes, desideri. In the opening scene of my novel you mentioned, La simmetria dei desideri, the protagonists write their wishes on pieces of paper while watching the World Cup of 1998. And they decide to open the wishes in the World Cup of 2002. These wishes haunt them, confuse them, frustrate them, but also they give them hope during a hard time in Israel's history, the Second Intifada, an outburst of violence and terror between Israelis and Palestinians. While preparing this lecture, I could not ignore the fact that we are now in 2022, which is, again, a year of the World Cup. So, I want to try something bold with you, people of Bologna. Here it comes. I think you have pieces of paper and pencils. Okay, this is the moment when the lecture becomes interactive. So, please take a piece of paper and a pencil and write down 2 wishes you have, 2 desideri. The year is now 2022. What would you like to happen in your life by the World Cup final of 2026? It can be love, it can be career, it can be finance, it could be something about the world, political or global. Everything is open. The wishes are very open. You can write whatever you like. And actually, because it's also my birthday today, I'm going to thank you. True story. I will do it myself also.
You need a...
2 is the minimum, 3 is the maximum. Okay, which one of you finished already? Raise your hand. Okay, I give you like 1 more minute, so you can finish thinking about the future, and then we will come back to the present. So maybe at the end of the lecture, if I feel that we are intimate enough, I will share my 3 desideri with you, if you remind me. No, it's okay. It's private. It's private. I know. I deliberately do not ask. Okay. If you read La Simmetria dei Desideri, you probably know that the most important thing you should do right now is to find out what are the wishes of the person sitting on your right side. If you have not read the book, do it and find out why. Anyway, I guess that you are feeling much more hopeful than before, because the minute we are talking about our desideri, we are looking towards the future, we are filled with this kind of hope or at least anticipation to what is going to happen, and not only to our challenging present. Now, but I'm coming back to the pandemia and to the question of hope. Wishes are important, but they are not enough, as I discovered. One also needs goals. I want to tell you what happened in my life. 3 months after the first lockdown was implicated in Israel, I joined a political movement that eventually changed my country. For those of you who are not fully updated in Israeli politics, for 13 years we had the same prime minister. He became stronger and stronger until he became too strong and started acting like a dictator, challenging the basic values of our country: democracy, freedom of speech, respect to the judicial system. After he was formally accused in corruption and bribery, he refused to respect our political tradition and leave his office. So, we went out to the streets. I was demonstrating, speaking in demonstrations, writing political articles, standing on bridges, on junctions, in front of the Prime Minister's house in Jerusalem, in the rain, in the snow, in the humid summer for a year. Sometimes we were hundreds, sometimes thousands, but we never gave up. At the end of every demonstration, we sang our national anthem, which is actually called Hatikva, which is the hope. This is the Israeli national anthem. Eventually, after a year of demonstrations, we actually won. After 3 elections, we finally have a new democratic, not perfect, but hopeful leadership in Israel. But I must say that this happy ending, winning, is not the main thing I wanted to talk about. The main thing was passion. I had a goal that I was passionate about, and it lightened up my life during the dark time of the pandemic. And I was not alone. With me in these demonstrations were 2 of my best friends. Which brings me to the 4th hope-provoking element I wanted to talk about. Amici, friends. Here is a little story about friendship. One of my closest friends in Israel is an actor. When the pandemic started, he lost his job and went into a very dark mood of anxiety and melancholy. Probably there were people around you at the same situation, I'm sure, because the pandemic here in Italy was tough enough. We were all worried about him, about this friend. Usually, he's a happy guy, maybe the less melancholic of us all. And suddenly, his face was gray and his eyes were sad. So we decided to celebrate his birthday like in the good old days. It was between the 2nd and the 3rd lockdown in Israel. Each one of us got a pass from his own family, and we rented a house in the nature away from the city. 5 high school friends, actually the La Simetria friends. Together again. For 3 days, we mainly hiked and made each other laugh. And it was amazing to see the change in our friend's face. He was smiling again. The light came back to his eyes. And of course, this weekend not only gave him hope, it actually gave all of us this hopeful sentiment. Which leads me to the 5th and final hope element I wanted to talk about today. People practicing yoga call it karma yoga. What is the definition of karma yoga? Karma yoga is an unselfish act or work that leads you to freedom. Can karma yoga be achieved in Zoom? The pandemic taught me that the answer is yes. But let me confess first. This stays here in Bologna, okay? I hate teaching creative writing via Zoom. It brings out the worst in me. It brings out the worst in me and deprives me of all my forces as a teacher. At the beginning of my Zoom experience, I would finish every Zoom class dry and low. But then I realized something. for my students, these Zoom classes during the lockdowns are salvation. They needed them like water, like air. They would begin this session empty and sad, and after 3 hours of writing, reading, interacting, they would finish them smiling. So I told myself, it doesn't really matter if you're not the best teacher on Zoom, as long as it gives comfort and hope to your students. In other words, if you want to develop hope, try giving hope to others. It will free you from yourself. It will give you meaning. After all these elements of hope I told you about, you might get the wrong impression that I was happy and cheerful during the 2 years of pandemia. Well, I wasn't. I went into a really dark mood during the 3rd lockdown in Israel, and the 5th wave of Omicron, the last one, just now, January, February, hit me really hard emotionally. But every time I feel low, I do remind myself that I have my imagination, I have my desideri, I have my goals, I have my friends, I have my family, and I have the ability to give hope to others. And I might use one of these elements to become hopeful again. Watching the news from Ukraine this week, it seems like hope is always on demand. So I want to finish with a post on Facebook that made me very, very hopeful these days. Let's screen it. Can we screen the post from Facebook? Okay, so of course you can't understand what's happening here. I'm going to explain. I come from a country that suffers from a constant violent conflict between Jews and Arabs. This text that you are looking at was posted by a young Palestinian. She's about to get married. I think you can see the marriage atmosphere. She's about to get married, and she decided to cherish her engagement by a text taken from the final lines of one of my books, which is called, in Italian, Soli Perduti. And she writes in Hebrew in the text, "Please, would someone tell Eshkol Nevo that his words are now imprinted on a tree in Jenin?" And Jenin is one of the most conflictual, the representative, one of the most toughest cities in this conflict between Israelis and Arabs. And in this city, we now have these very, it was so, I just got it before I flew here to Italy, and I thought this is, in these days of war and conflict that we are experiencing now, seeing this kind of gave me hope, again, in the power of words to create bridges. It's unbelievable for me to see this, that something that I wrote as a Jewish writer, as an Israeli, has become part of a Palestinian engagement ceremony. It's on the verge of science fiction. And I thought to kind of wrap up our conversation with this hopeful moment, and of course, because the lines from Soli Perduti are written in Hebrew and Arabic, I think I will read them first in Hebrew, and then Costantino would be generous enough to read these hopeful lines in Italian. So I will start in Hebrew.
Okay, I wait for you.
Okay. והנה, באו הימים שביליתי בעירכם, והשעות הארוכות שיונה נצבה ליד מיטתי, ואחזה בידי, והזכירו לי שהנס הגדול מכולם הוא לא הוצאת מים מן הסלע, ולא הורדת המן מהשמיים, ולא פקיעת ים סוף לשניים. הנס הגדול מכולם מתרחש כששני אנשים נפגשים בזמן הנכון, והופכים להיות מקום של ממש, כל אחד בשביל האחר.
E mi hanno ricordato
And they reminded me that the best miracle is not the water coming out of a rock and not the opening of the Red Sea. The biggest miracle takes place when two people meet in the right moment and become a place, the one for the other.
I hope I gave you hope. And I think we're now opening for questions.
yes,
Giovanni?
we are open to questions, and there's a couple of microphones going at your disposal. Su. Just raise your hand. Okay, there's one there. Yeah.
In English.
In English.
Okay. I try to talk in English. It's a simple question, but I think a very problematic and profound. Staying on what is happening just now, in these days. An analogy, a comparison between the Israelitic history of the people, Jewish people, Palestinian, and so on. The problem, the same problem of a nation, of a Jewish nation, and so on. A comparison between this situation of the Jewish people, Palestinian people, and now Ukrainian and Russian one, for example, the problem of people, of nation, of a true and sincere national view of nation and of appartenenza in Italian, to be part of some community, people, but not to impose ourselves, our people, to other people. That is the evil. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. I think I understand your question. First of all, and I've been asked a lot since I came here to Italy a couple of days ago, I've been asked a lot about the Ukraine conflict. I think first, living in Israel is actually living in a war zone. I was born in 71. In 73 was the first war I remember. My first memory is from the 1973 war in Israel as a child. All around us, there are post-traumatic people. I would say the whole Israeli society is PTSD in a way. So we know the price of war. We live it in a way. And because of that, I guess we become much more sensitive to these issues, because when I look at the pictures from the Ukraine, I know that not only the people that would get injured and killed will suffer, but also their families and the one who would be near. It's a circles and circles of suffering. So you have to be for peace in this case. And coming back to your question, I think looking at history, when there is a strong national identity, like in the Ukraine, or like the Palestinian identity, you cannot deny it for a long time. You cannot deny it, oppress it, repress it, or depress it. It's impossible. Eventually, if nationality feel this identity, it will need to be independent. So I guess I wish the conflict between the Ukraine and Russia would finish as quick as possible, as less injuries and casualties in body and soul. And I also wish my country and our region to reach a peaceful solution. I think it's possible. I think my government is not doing enough for this, and I hope it will change. You can also ask in Italian. It's okay. I'm getting translation.
Yeah,
Here we go. Let's see if they're asking in Italian. There is another question. Can you hear me? No, in English.
Today.
Okay, I invited
If I
it,
dare
you
to
know.
ask,
I was
obviously.
asking for trouble. Let me look. Okay. Okay, I have 3. You want to share your 3 wishes, by the way? Before I share mine? Okay, go ahead.
Well, stop war.
Stop
I
the
think
war.
This is the one everybody's sharing at the moment. Health in the family. And the third one was to regain a gentle kind of attitude, which I think we have lost.
Regain a what
especially
kind of
in these
attitude?
last few years.
What was the word? Regain a what?
Gentle attitude.
Gentle attitude.
You know, to get back to being kind. Kindness is probably the word.
Beautiful. Wow. You wish kindness. That's so beautiful. It's funny because today my wife and I were going from Firenze to Bologna and talking about how kind the Italians are. So I guess you can be kinder. So my 3 wishes are, the first one is that I have 3 daughters. So my first wish was that my daughters would grow up and healthy and happy. It's not to be taken for granted. There's a lot of worries when you are a parent, so we worry for all 3 of them. Each one has its own worries, and so this was my first wish. The second one was peace in Israel and in Europe, regarding your question. And the third one is quite specific. I want to be on the same stage with Bruce Springsteen.
Do you sing? No? What are you doing? What are you going to do with him?
Constantina is asking, what would I do on the stage with Bruce Springsteen? I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay. You want to arrive there, and then you'll see. Okay. There's some more question? Yes.
Hi. In which of your books can we find more hope? Why are we looking for hope?
Wow.
The last one.
Costantino is whispering like in a theater. The last one. Okay. I'm trying to seriously and authentically think about your question. I guess there's a mix of hope and challenges and conflict and sadness and happiness and passion in every one of my novels. I think it's a serious question you're asking. I think I try to end all my novels, including the most dramatic and melancholic. I try to end them with at least a note of hope. Like Tre Piani, for instance, is a very intense book. When I saw the Nanni Moretti adaptation in the summer, my breath was I was not breathing for the 2 hours of the movie. There's a lot of tough things happening in this movie, and of course it comes from the book. But I think also Nanni Moretti felt the same, because the ending of the film is optimistic in a way. And also the ending of my book is a demonstration where the judge, the main character, is hopeful again. So coming back to your question, just if you want only hope, just read the endings. That's what I can promise.
Thank you.
Okay.
So skip the rest.
Skip the rest, yeah.
Another question there.
It's
There.
me. Which is your favorite writer?
Which is my favorite writer? There's a lot. And there's also a lot of Italian writers I really like. And it's hard to choose because the minute I choose one, I'm offending the others, whether they're alive or dead. But I think the one who inspires me the most is Italo Calvino, because he also Umberto Eco also did it. But with Italo Calvino, every book of his is a new game. He's reinventing himself in every book, and I think this is my passion, my challenge as a writer, to surprise myself in every new book, to surprise my readers in a way. When people read my new book, La Via dell'Eden, and my first Italian readers responded to this book because it came out this week, and they said, we were surprised. It's different from the other books of yours, and I'm kind of happy because this is the kind of inspirations I'm getting from Italo Calvino. Not to repeat yourself, to invent a new structure every time, a new theme. Maybe it's the characters, maybe it's the language. Something has to be fresh. Or either, why bother my readers with another novel of mine? So I guess this Italo Calvino and freshness would be the answer to your question.
First of all, Yom Huled Sameach. And
she said happy birthday. Yes.
And, well, I started reading your book last time I was in Israel, and I have strong boundaries with both Israel and Palestine. And for chance, I have here Soglie Perduti, but the Hebrew version, and I haven't still read it in Hebrew, but that was the first one I read in Italian. And I want to ask you something maybe too poor and too big at the same time. And how can you bring hope when you haven't got hope? So I felt it during pandemia, and I felt the same about the situation in Israel and Palestine, because I have friends on both sides of the conflict. And I was both in Jenin and in other cities. I have colleagues in my university who came from Israel and Palestine at the same time. And I have this question, and maybe there's no answer in it, but I'm curious about your answer.
I think the whole idea of this specific lecture, by the way, is the first time I'm doing it. It was actually written especially for this event, and because of the times that we are facing, the idea of my lecture was exactly what you asked. Like, how can you produce hope when you do not feel hope? Because the situation during the pandemic and also now in Europe is not a hopeful one. So the things I was talking about were not immediate things, the things that you have to look for and crave for. And so I guess everything I said is an answer to your question, but I will still try to address it in a different way. I'm a Jerusalemite. I was born in Jerusalem. I missed Jerusalem all the time, even though I don't live in it anymore. And Jerusalem, I think, is in a nutshell, it's the story. The Middle East, the Israeli-Palestinian, Jews and Arabs, Christians, of course, also. Jerusalem is the heart of darkness and the heart of light. And every time there's something violent happening in Jerusalem, we have it a lot lately. There's a lot of violence in Jerusalem. It can get you into real despair, like to feel that it will never be quiet in this crazy city. We will never have a solution here. We will always have violence and blood in Jerusalem. But then what I do is I try to cling to the sometimes it's really small things like initiatives and a collaboration between an Israeli and Palestinian musicians, and a party in which there's a Palestinian DJ and the Jewish people are dancing. And maybe the specific friends I make with Palestinians, that the specific friends I have. So I try clinging to these little points of hope and kind of leaning on them for a while until the bad time is over. And I hope I help with my answer. This is what I do. I cling to the positive. I try to attach myself to the little positive moments, and you have them. We had them during, for instance, in Israel, I don't know if you know that, but there was a moment in Italy that people came out to the balconies and they played music and instruments, and you don't know what effect it had in Israel. Like, people were looking at Italians, and you had a much more tougher pandemic than us at that time. We were looking at Italians and say, they are doing this in their balconies, and so we can look at it and gain hope from this. For us, it was a moment of hope. So sometimes you cling to something. You choose one thing that you are clinging to, and then you can be at the balcony and smiling, at least for a while.
I would like, if at all possible, I would like, if at all possible, to revert to a previous question which was asked, and it has to do with your creative process and the fact that when you write a book, you always try and surprise your audience. And when you start working on any new story of yours, do you hope to surprise yourself as well? So, do you already have a well-charted out plan when you start writing? Or you have just a weak torch that lights up a couple of feet in front of you, and then the rest is mystery, and you hope to surprise yourself with it?
No, it's a weak torch is a beautiful metaphor. You could also use the light that the car does, the car lights that you only see for 20 or 30 meters. I usually start a book with knowing not a lot. My new book, La Via dell'Eden, started with a piece in an Israeli newspaper. There was a report about an Israeli couple that there was an accident in the death road in Bolivia, and one of them died. And I looked at this piece of news in the newspaper, and I thought to myself, this is not the whole story. First of all, I knew them, these two guys, and I thought to myself, this is not the whole story. And I tried to find out what is the true story, but I was blocked. Nobody wanted to tell me. So I started writing a story, a novel, and I didn't have a GPS, a Waze, Google Maps. I was just walking with my imagination, letting myself to be surprised. I didn't even know if it's going to be a novel. It took a while until I understood that this novel will have 3 parts. And actually it happened like that with all of my books. La Simmetria dei Desideri started with a writer's block that I had in another book. I was stuck in another book, and I thought, okay, the World Cup is 5 months from now. Maybe I should write a short story about friends, wishes, and the World Cup, based on a real thing that happened in my real life. We actually wrote wishes on pieces of paper in the World Cup of 1998. Until this day, by the way, we haven't opened them. That's the true story. So I thought to myself, I'll write a short story, and I will publish a short story in the World Cup. But then it turned out to be a novel. It developed and it changed. And so this is the way I write. I hardly plan. I don't write a synopsis. I don't sketch the plot. I think this is the only way that your subconscious could be involved in the process. Because if you know too much, then your passions, your dreams, your fears would not get into the text. And without them, text has no heart. So, yes, I'm trying to surprise myself with every book during the process, after the process. I think it's necessary. If I don't feel I have something new to say or to do, usually the text dies. It doesn't survive. Okay. It's beautiful. Everybody's asking questions.
Yeah.
In English.
We are kind, but
Bologna
also...
people.
Grazie, io la domanda la faccio in italiano perché lo capisco, ma...
I will do my question in Italian. I wanted to, since very often the pretext of wars are also religious conflicts. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear the translation? Yes, okay. Since the cause of wars usually is attributed to religious conflicts, the pretext to have a war start from a different view and different religious belief, do you believe that religion still can bring in towards peace?
That's a big question. In a way, it's interesting. In a way, I think that the piece we read in Italian is kind of an answer to your question, because the piece is talking about what is the big miracle. Is it a miracle done by God? Is it taking water out of the rock? Is it bringing food from the sky? Is it breaking the sea into two? And the text says, no, it's not. The big miracle is when two people meet and they become a place one to each other. So I'm secular. I'm not a believer. I respect people who believe, and some of my friends and my family are believers. I see the way their belief is shaping them and for the good, making them more, how do you say, kind? More kind, and maybe more careful in the way they treat other people. But for me, as a secular person, the responsibility is always ours. The responsibility to solve the problems of our family, our community, our country, the world is ours. It does not depend on anyone else but us. So I guess I'm a humanistic and not a religious person. Sorry.
Salve, anch'io in italiano.
Yes.
Io ero curiosa invece di sapere se lei da piccolo aveva dei desideri. Non sente.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Did you have? I was curious to know if you, as a child, you had wishes, and if these wishes have come through, have become real. Is it a difficult question? No.
It's interesting because I think as a child, it's sometimes in La Simmetria dei Desideri, without ruining the book for those of you who haven't read it, you don't actually get what you want, but sometimes, like the Rolling Stones said, you get what you need. So my wish as a child and an adolescent was to be a psychologist. Instead, I got what I needed and I became a writer. I guess another wish of mine was that I want, from a very early age, because I have one brother, we are two brothers, and we wanted a sister really badly. We craved for a sister, and it didn't work out. And so I remember myself at the age of 14, 13, wishing to be a father of 2 daughters. And I got 3. And I guess another thing that was, I'm trying to answer your question as authentically as I can. So it takes me a while to think. But I think as a child, we moved a lot as a family. We were moving homes from city to city in Israel, and then to the United States, and then back to Israel, and then inside Israel. Until the age of 18, I have lived in at least 13 houses, different houses. So I think one of my cravings as a child was to finally feel at home. And I guess this was fulfilled the day I married my wife, and then the daughters. I found my home, and also I because we are now after 3 days in Italy, I would say that, and I could say that with a lot of emotion, that I think I also found my second home here in Italy.
Maybe I would like to...
Add some light.
No, just a question for you.
Question for you, okay.
Yes. As I told you while we were walking here, that there are connections between you and Umberto Eco, and because he was a little bit worried about the fact that it was Umberto Eco lectures, and so he started thinking about what he could say on Umberto Eco, but he was not required to say anything. But there are connections, I think, especially on one of the main focuses of Umberto Eco's activity as both as a scholar and a novelist and a writer, that is the dialectic between truth and fake. And I enjoyed very much the last interview because it's a game with your own role as a writer, and I wonder whether your friends are pissed off with you putting them into the novels you write, because at the end the writer is obsessed with looking always for something good to put into a book. And so I guess I wonder whether this is your obsession too sometimes, or not.
Okay, I think everyone who meets a writer is in a danger to get into one of his novels, including you. So take that into consideration. When we go to the aperitivo, think what you are saying, what you are not saying. This is what I do. I hunt stories, but I think the question of truth and lie, I think we are living in a very difficult time in that sense. It's really hard to tell what is news, what is fake news, what is manipulation, what is a campaign, who is fooling us, what is Facebook sharing or promoting content which is deliberately violence-provoking or conflict-provoking. It's a really, because there's such a massive amount of information, it's really hard to find what is true. And I think one of the reasons I write, and one of the reasons I read, and one of the reasons I think literature is still very important in our world, is that when you read a book that really touches your heart, you feel that you're able to touch something which is authentic inside of you, beyond the fake, beyond the distractions, beyond everything that is done in order to manipulate us. I think literature is a way to connect to this authentic moment, this authentic feeling, and this is why I write, this is why I read. And when my friends complain about being in my books, I tell them, yes, but this is for authenticity. Be close to the truth. So yes, so be careful.
I will. Is there any other question? Yeah. We're going to spend the night here.
Volevo fare una domanda.
I wanted to ask you a question on the Tre Piani. What was your impression when you saw the characters in the film? And do you think that they were rendered in the complexity of the characters, or Nanni Moretti had to focus on only some aspects of the characters due to the fact that the medium was different?
The question is about the Piani adaptation. So first of all, I will tell you how it began. Talking about truth and lie, I got an email 5 years ago from Nanni Moretti. And the email said something like, I read your book, Tre Piani, and I want to make a film out of it. Now, immediately, I thought this is a fake Nanni Moretti. So I answered very suspiciously. I answered, Dear Mr. Moretti, can you please elaborate on your vision for this film? Now, I was sure that this is a fake Nanni Moretti, so he doesn't have any vision. So instead, after a couple of days, I get this email from the real Nanni Moretti in details, telling me what is his vision for the film, for the future film. Now that was 5 years ago, and when I first saw the film, it struck me how close. I came back to that email and I read it, and how close was the film to his vision. I think it takes a really great director to have a vision so soon and to go and realize the vision through the obstacles and through the challenges of adaptation and the challenges of the pandemic and everything that happened. And still he kept a very close watch on his vision. And I think this is amazing. Now, your question was about my reaction to the film. And my wife is here, so she witnessed my reaction. She can be my validation. I think the first time I saw the movie, I was a bit overwhelmed and shocked because they were Italian. They were dressed really nice. In my imagination, they were Israelis dressed like Israelis. And the building I had in mind, this ugly building in suburbia in Israel, it's a beautiful building in Rome. And of course, the changes he had to make, he actually told me in advance he was very, very generous and sensitive. He told me in advance all the changes he will have to make. And still, when you see it in the movie, and you see that it's not exactly like in the book, your first reaction is a kind of antagonism, like what happened to my book? So then my wife gave me a very good advice. She told me, don't write to him now. So I waited a couple of days, and I watched the film again for the second time, and I liked it. I was able to see it as a movie. And then we went to the Cannes Festival, and actually my daughter came with me. She's 18 years old, and she never read a book of mine. She's reading other books. And we went together to the Cannes Festival, and she was sitting, actually, she was on my left side, and I saw the whole movie through her eyes. It was magnificent, because I was going through the movie by looking at her, and at one point she held my hand, and at one point she started crying, and at the end of the movie she turned to me and she said, "Father, it's a good movie." Now, the greatest compliment I ever got from my daughters. And then, it's not the ending of the story. And then there was a screening of Trepiani in Rome. And Nani really wanted me to be in the cinema, in his cinema in Sacher, in Trastevere. And we went to see the film, and it was with no subtitles. No subtitles, just Italian, and I enjoyed it the most. So, this is the story.
But did your daughter read the book at the end?
Did she read the book?
Did you read the book?
Trepiani, no.
No.
No, not yet. Not yet. But I'm not rushing.
No.
There's no rush.
No, it's wise. Okay. There's a question.
Hi.
Hi.
You said that hope is about sharing. So if you could share with us a moment in which you felt hope at its finest.
Again?
If you could share with us a moment in which you felt hope at its finest. So the moment in which you felt hope.
I think this is a kind of what I did in my lecture, but I will elaborate for you a little bit. I think I gave several moments of hope during my lecture, but I think maybe one of the most emotional moments during these 2 years was the day the new government in Israel was formed, and we had this, I would call it even a party, and it was a party in the center of Tel Aviv. It was the first party I was participating in for 2 years, or for 1.5 years. And it was a long, long road. These demonstrations, I don't know if I was able to transfer how tough it was. And I was paying also a personal price as an artist, having a political opinion and talking in demonstrations. I got a lot of criticism. So this moment when we were there and there was music and the people were hugging each other, forgetting about social distancing. And I think maybe if I had to choose a moment, this would be one. It was a really moment of that. You know, when you are a writer, when you are a storyteller, you have to believe in change. Because if there is no change, there is no story. The basic element of a story is a change. When I look at my student texts in the creative writing class, the first thing I'm looking to find is there a change or not? So in the heart of a story is the change, is the word change. But sometimes in life you stop believing in the possibility of change. You stop believing that a dictator or a prime minister who is almost a dictator would ever release us from himself. And then this moment was, for me, it was like a proof that, yes, you can believe in change in life, in real life, not only in a story. And sometimes you have to really work hard for that. It doesn't come easy, change, political change and personal change. Sometimes you have to work hard, and you have to run into obstacles, and you have to be frustrated, and you have to walk in the rain and in the snow with only a few friends, but eventually, and this moment proved to me that, and I think I will take this for all my life. Whenever I would be encountered with this kind of despair or disbelief, I will remember that night in Tel Aviv that we actually were able to make a change. We, the people, not the politicians, not the rich people, we, just citizens, really, really passionate about what they believe, we were actually able to make a change. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the last question. Okay, the last question. And then we...
Good evening, Mr. Nevo.
Hi.
I would like, first of all, sharing two of my wishes, and one is for you, for your daughters, because one is to live under Pacific and
to live under what?
Pacific and honest governments, all of us. And the second is for you and for your daughters to feel protected. That means to be home. And I think, I have a question for you. Do you think hope can have the same content of prayer? Hope can have the same content of prayer.
Of prayer, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for wishing nice things for my daughters.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It reminded me of the moment I fell in love with Italians. It was in Turin. And I was listening, there was just reading, like here, questions and answers. And also there was a reading from my book in Italian. So when they read from your book in Italian, I don't understand Italian. So usually I have all my thoughts running about all sorts of things. So the moderator asked me, what were you thinking about while your book was, while a piece was read in Italian from your book? And I was trying to be honest, and I said, well, actually, I was thinking about that this is my last night in Italy, and I haven't bought present to my daughters yet. So I said this, and then the event continued. And there were questions and answers, and another piece was read, and then more questions, and book signing. And then at the end of the book signing, stands a lady, and she says, I brought you presents for your daughters. Okay. But just to make you comfortable, you don't need to bring presents for our daughters. We have 2 days in Bologna, it's enough time. And regarding the prayer you mentioned, yes, I think in every prayer you have, the core of a prayer is a hope. And maybe this whole event we had today is a sort of a prayer.
Okay. Thank you. Before leaving, I would like to thank the several people who made this evening possible. First of all, the staff of the University Library, who supported me in the realization of this conference. The Patto per la Lettura, the Pact for Reading of the Municipality of Bologna, which involved its network of readers for this occasion. My friends and colleague, Riccardo Fedriga, who helped me to get in touch with Nevo's Italian publisher, the communication office of Neri Pozza, in particular Daniela Pagani, the staff of communication office and press office of the University of Bologna. It's always a pleasure to work with them. And above all, I would like to thank Articolture, the agency that took care of the practical organization, the simultaneous translation, and the online streaming service, in particular Valentina Ferretti and Fabrizio Cabizza. Finally, I would like to thank Eshkol Nevo, again, for his kindness and generosity, because it took a while. And happy birthday at the end. Grazie a tutti, ci vediamo presto con il prossimo appuntamento.
They're not shy, the Bologna people. They're not shy at all.
And they use also headphones.
And they use the headphones. I think I like the Bologna people.
Yeah, I think I like